objectives, our goal is to facilitate and increase advocacy and civic engagement in the Midlands area. What does that mean to us? Simple. Local elections matter. With me tonight is my co-moderator, Mr. David Olds. Great to have you here to help steer the conversation. Next, we have the City Council at Large candidates. In alphabetical order by last name, we have Tyler Bailey, Heather Bauer, Aditi Bussell, Deetra Stover Matthews, Aaron Smalls, and Jonathan Tyler. Thank you, candidates, for being here tonight. Local elections have significant impact, yet participation and active interest remain significantly low. What does that mean? We are 33 days away from Election Day, and it's time for us to begin talking about who we plan to vote for before we arrive to the polls on November 2nd. Tonight, the YPs are using our platform to educate and provide you with resources and energy that will bring your power to the ballot box and reclaim your vote. I'm going to turn the Q&A portion over to Mr. David Olds, who will assist in driving our conversation.
Thank you, President Frazier, for allowing me to co-moderate this special forum tonight. Candidates, the question portion will now begin. As a reminder, you do have 1 minute to answer each question, and we will start with Mr. Tyler Bailey as our first question. Please introduce yourself and share with us all your vision of what the heart of Columbia and the heart of South Carolina should and could look like in the next 5 to 10 years.
I'm Tyler Bailey. Of course, I'm a candidate for Columbia City Council at large like everybody else in here. I'm from Columbia. I'm an attorney. I'm a business owner. More importantly, I'm a husband. I'm a father. And I care about this community. I only left this community to go to undergraduate school at Hampton University in Virginia, then law school down at Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, both HBCUs, and I came right back home, started my business, began serving in the community because I care about this place. I care about the city deeply. We have a choice in the next 5 or 10 years to either go about business as usual or make drastic changes, make bold investments to really take our city to the next level. And that's why I decided to run for city council at large. We got to address the disparities between the communities that have been exacerbated by the pandemic. We need to fix our infrastructure. We need to recruit businesses so we can retain our best and brightest. I have plans to move all that forward, and I hope to earn your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Deetra Matthews.
Good evening. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, my name is Deetra Stover Matthews. I'm running for Columbia City Council at large. I was born and raised right here in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm a proud product of Richland School District 1. I left here in 1996 to go to college believing that I could conquer the world. And I believe it's because of city leaders, community leaders, organizations like the Columbia Urban League. I found today the program where I was awarded in February of 1996, one of the young gifted awardees back in 1996. And so I hope that I'm making the Columbia Urban League especially proud. In the next 5 or 15 years, I envision this city to be a place where people never want to leave, truly. As a military spouse who's been able to travel travel the country and live in places all over the country, I value what that means. Being a place where no one wants to leave, that includes making sure that we create a culture, an economic culture. Thank you.
Dr. Aditi Bussell.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Aditi Bussell. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to all of us. I am a proud first-generation immigrant. My mom's actually in the audience today who doesn't get to be with me a lot, so I'm very thankful that she could be with me. And I'm running for city council at large because I believe that Columbia should be the best place to open a business and raise a family. I always like to use the phrase, Columbia should be a destination, a place that people choose regardless of whether they were born here, they came here for school, or they're coming back from whatever their life took them to. And it's because we are a place that's vibrant, that's thriving, that's equitable. So my vision always goes back to who I am, and that is I'm a public health researcher, and I believe that ultimately when our communities are healthy, our people can be healthy. And to do that, we must ensure that Columbia is a competitive place, we can open businesses, and we don't have problems and barriers. It is an equitable place where resources are allocated well, and our infrastructure is friendly. Thank you guys so much.
Ms. Heather Bauer.
Hi, thanks for having me here tonight. I'm Heather Bauer. A proud second-time candidate running for office again. And I'm running again because I've been told no my whole life. No, you can't go to college. I was the first to graduate from school in my family. No, you can't play volleyball. I got a volleyball scholarship to go to school. No, you can't run for office, so I'm running again. I've been here for 14 years. I chose to make Columbia my home because I love this place. And by day, I'm a business owner. I live and breathe. I've had to shut my business down, pivot fast. I had the first-hand experience on how to close a business, open it back up safely. We need that experience on council now. I'm also a project manager. I not only research, but I develop and I implement big solutions with companies all around the world on time and on budget, and that's exactly what I'll do on council.
Mr. Aaron Smalls.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Aaron Smalls. I'm running for city council because I believe that Columbia needs somebody on the city council who is truly for the people. My background, I have a large experience in travel with my work. I worked overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan for a span of 8 years, which I dealt with military contracting, where my specialty was auditing. So I'm very, very thorough in making sure policies are made, they are tracked, and we hold each other accountable for actually doing what we say we will do when we make our promises. I'm running because I really believe that people need more accountability within our government. We need more transparency, and we need more honesty. And we also need local civic leaders that are actually there when you need them. We don't need people who are sitting on a pedestal when we need help. We are a local community. We are a neighborhood, so I feel like we should treat it as such.
Thank you. Mr. Jonathan Tyler.
My name is John Tyler, and I'm running for City Council seat at large. I am a Columbia native. I went to school here in Richland 1. I work here. I am a frontline worker. I've been a frontline worker ever since the inception of COVID. I can tell you what it's like struggling to pay the bills. I can tell you what it's like struggling to look at the taxes. And I can tell you what it's like dealing with public transportation. So when you voting on November 2nd, you want somebody that's closest to the people. And not only that, with my nonprofit organization, One Common Cause Community Control Initiative, we're a head-first, grassroots organization that sticks to the needs of the people, whether it be dealing with housing, police, social injustice, or whatever nature it may be. So when you look on November 2nd and you want somebody that's really going to be there for the people, look for John Tyler. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we are going to start with Ms. Deetra Matthews and go clockwise from there. We're going to discuss infrastructure. Infrastructure is understood as an issue encompassing a variety of interrelated repairs beyond roads and bridges. Broadband access, pedestrian-friendly walk and roadways, accessible and navigable public transportation, utility security, and improvements to deteriorating water and sewer systems. As a city council member, what are actionable steps you would immediately take to work with others to improve Columbia's infrastructure in an equitable manner? Ms. Deetra Matthews.
Thank you so much for that wonderful question. The city of Columbia has one of the oldest water systems in the country, dating back to the early 1800s. So I'm going to take the approach, and I'm going to look at our water infrastructure. As a conservationist who advocates for clean water every single day at our State House, this is something that I'm deeply passionate about. I think we have a brown water problem here in the city of Columbia. I cannot tell you how many times I've been on doorsteps where individuals have shared with me that they don't feel comfortable drinking the water out of their faucets. So I think in the next, one of the very first things that I plan to do is to institute a water overhaul plan that takes a deep dive for the next 10 to 15 years. That water overhaul plan will be funded, of course, by an array of funding sources. Our federal government partnering with our county council, and of course, nurturing those relationships at our State House. But I think it is necessary, it is required, it is beyond time that we look at our outdated water systems and do a complete overhaul plan. Thank you.
I appreciate that you recognize that infrastructure has so many definitions. So I'll talk about two definitions. First, from a business perspective, it's really hard to do business in Columbia. I'd like for us to improve our customer service, streamline our departments to be more efficient, and have a culture of yes, as opposed to no, I can't help you. And when we do that, more people will want to invest in Columbia. The next thing I will say, and I agree with Ms. Matthews, our water system is extremely outdated, and for too long, our water and sewer fund has been used for everything but improving our water system. In fact, to the point that we continue to pay fines to the EPA. And I'd like to see us actually use those taxes for what they've been intended for, which is our water and sewage system, so that a basic resource like access to clean water is available to everyone. Thank you for that question.
So I've heard more about potholes and probably a lot of other topics. So infrastructure is a big problem, and it does cover the gamut of what you mentioned. So the first thing I've been kind of trying to beat the nail on the head for the past 3 years is we need to form an ad hoc committee to work with other councils and delegates within the district. So county council, city council, we need our state house delegates within the Midlands to work together. That includes school boards. To work together. We cannot solve it alone on city council, is my belief. So bringing them to the table, I will book a room, date, time to start that conversation, a real committee, I think is really important. And what I also haven't heard yet is we have a great opportunity to put American Rescue Plan Act dollars towards this issue. I know the city now is in a 3-part phase redoing our sewer lines. I think we can use those sources that we have next year, another $13.5 million, to look at our water lines as well. It's going to take time. Our infrastructure hasn't been updated since World War I, I believe, so it's going to take time and a lot of communication with our constituents to let them know this is going to take time. Thank you.
So definitely, in terms of infrastructure, we definitely have a lot of issues. I want to piggyback off of what Deisha said as well. I spoke to people in the Pinehurst community, the Earlwood community, and also in, I forgot the other community's name, but definitely a lot of people are dealing with brown and yellow water. That's something I never even heard of. Like, that's something people are dealing with in Flint. We live in the capital city in Columbia, South Carolina. That should not be an issue we should be dealing with and allowing our neighbors to deal with on a daily basis. So that's definitely one thing we need to clean up. The way to fix that is when we allocate funds, we need to make sure they go to the things we allocate them to. Stop sending funds to pet projects that don't even really enrich Columbia as a whole. We need to make sure that the people are all given an equitable chance in this city. And when it comes of sewage and water, that also feeds directly into our health. If we don't have clean drinking water, that trickles down to something that might come up a little bit later, health disparities. So we definitely need to make sure we have that fixed. And with roads, that's a big problem as well. But
when we're speaking about infrastructure, and of course, since this is one of the main problems, of course, the water issue. Well, I personally have seen sewage come out of people's showers, come out of their sinks, come out of their toilets, and all maintenance can tell them is, we'll get somebody to come through and vacuum it out for you later. And that's very, very bad in a lot of ways, because we spend millions of dollars in sections of sewage and maintenance on one side of town, and then we're completely forgetting about a whole different side of town. These are the same people that pay taxes, whether it's minimal or maximum amount of taxes. So when we look into reallocating these funds, we need to hold accountable of where these funds are going. Not only hold accountable where these funds are going, come up with a different type of plan as this sewage plan that they have. I want us to take a deeper look into that plan. I want us to peel back the layers of that plan and make sure that every red cent is going where it's supposed to be going, that every community is covered. Even in a nice town like Cottontown, we have sewage issues. If you roll through our neighborhood right now and hit the road too hard, the water's gonna come up out of the ground. So we need to look into infrastructure ways and peel that plan apart. Thank you.
Mr. John Kringle is now joining us, so I will repeat the question for him. Infrastructure is understood as an issue encompassing a variety of interrelated repairs beyond roads and bridges. Broadband access, pedestrian-friendly walk and roadways, accessible and navigable public transportation, utility security, and improvements to deteriorating water and sewer systems. As a city council member, what are actionable steps you would immediately take to work with others to improve Columbia's infrastructure in an equitable manner?
Right. Well, I've been dealing with the sewage problem at the State House for the last 35 years. We have a tremendous amount of corruption in South Carolina, and one of the reasons that the money that is needed for infrastructure is not available is that special interests go to the State House and pay off the legislators hire them as attorneys and consultants and give them campaign contributions and so on, and the money is being siphoned off to the wrong places. So one of the things I would continue to do, as I have done for 35 years, is to try to address the corruption problem at the State House. I've also been a lobbyist for 35 years, and I don't think Colombia has conducted a very effective lobbying operation at the State House to get additional funds that we need to build up our infrastructure. An honest government is infrastructure. You cannot build a dynamic economy, as many third world countries have found, when you have a massive amount of public corruption and politicians are constantly trying to line their own pockets.
One of the first things I would like to do to make sure that the infrastructure needs of the city are being addressed in an equitable way, is perform an equitable study to see how the infrastructure needs are being met or not being met in different parts of the city. Groundwater is a terrible problem that we have. The sewage system needs to be updated. The law is pretty clear that says where those funds need to go. They need to go to fix the sewer system, the water system. But we also need to look at infrastructure beyond sewer, beyond water. I mean, for example, there's areas in North Colombia where there's bus stops, but there's no sidewalks where people are getting off. And in other areas of the city, there are sidewalks. So we have to address the infrastructure needs of the city and make sure equity is done in all decisions when we're looking for infrastructure needs. Another one I would say is access to healthy and nutritious food. Food insecurity and the lack of grocery stores is an infrastructure problem. It must be addressed. There's funds coming from the federal government that can help us with this. And we need to look at our greatest resource here, which is our people. If all our people don't have access to healthy food, we can't have to get a job to get food in our infrastructure for our citizens to continue to lack. Thank you.
Thank you. And we just ask that when you want to rebuttal or respond to a candidate, that you raise your hand and that we will call on you based on who's raised their hand first. So, Ms. Beatrice Silver Matthews, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a rebuttal. I want to lean into this being a more of a conversation platform. It seems as if the topic that everyone wanted to share on was our sewer issues, and I just want to let us know how urgent this is, and we have to not continue to tell our constituents in the city of Columbia to hurry up and wait. We've waited far too long. Literally, just last year, in 2020, the city of Columbia was responsible for having almost 1 million gallons of raw sewage to pour into our Congaree River. This is an urgent matter. We have to do something now. And the fact that people are literally having a difficult time to pay their water bills, water that they are uncertain whether or not it's safe to drink, this really has to be considered an urgent matter. And so thank you for allowing me to continue in this conversational dialogue.
Ms. Heather Bauer.
Yeah, I completely agree that to have business, and I'm a business owner myself, I want my business to grow. I want other businesses to move here, stay here, grow here. But my platform is all about taking care of the basic needs of our constituents with the tax dollars that they pay. So attainable housing, food insecurity, clean water. Those are the top 3 things on my platform. And third, people want transparency. They want collaboration. They want a councilwoman who works with them to make decisions on how they best see their community in their future. So I think taking care of those basic needs is paramount, absolutely. And that's why they're the most important things on my platform.
Thank you all. We will be moving the discussion now to economic development. The Bull Street District has recently seen a huge injection of investment to revitalize the area and rebuild the once dilapidated area. What is your vision for the Bull Street District? And if you plan to continue its repair, what are your plans for efficiently funding it and ensuring the proliferation of local businesses, inclusionary zoning, and hiring of contractors who better represent the community? We'll be starting with Dr. Aditi Bustles.
That's a great question. I'm very excited. I am a resident of Earlwood, which is not too far from Bull Street, and I would say most of our communities are looking forward to that. But, there have been many hiccups along the way, like, for example, having to use city retirement funds to pay for a parking lot, right? That's a problem. Injecting almost $70 million for a ballpark, which I love the Fireflies, but think about what we could have done with $70 million. But But I want to see it succeed. It can be our premier retail district. As a millennial, I'd like to see more young people choose this city over other places. In order for us to see its long-term success, I think a couple of things need to happen. I'll go back to what I said earlier about my vision. I want this city to be healthy in terms of its economy and healthy in terms of its people. And that means removing barriers for small businesses to come in, particularly of homegrown entrepreneurs. I'd like to see people choose to stay here and open a business so that they're invested in Bull Street. I'd like to see us incentivize our minority business owners to choose Bull Street so that they feel, again, like they're a part of something. And my time's up, but I can talk more.
Yes, that's a great question. Because I was actually one of the first businesses to open up on Bull Street, the Iron Yard, which is a program boot camp. So I worked with SoCo. I helped cut the ribbon. So I've been there since day one to help that whole project. But what I will say, though, is that the city has a lot of plans, and we don't follow through with a lot of the plans. And that's something I would like to bring to the table as my day-to-day job, again, as a project manager. All I do is get the job done, and these are 5-10-year projects, and you have to pick away at it every single day. So that's what I want to do is focus on the plans we need to get done. Talking about infrastructure, I think it's important, obviously, to cut through red tape, get businesses to move to Bull Street. But if you look at the businesses on Bull Street, and I can say that because I helped start one, they're from the city, they've just been moved over to Bull Street. So we have to do a better job to support growth in the city business-wise.
Well, definitely, my plan for Bull Street would be, I would definitely not want to continue to take funds from, of course, the infrastructure to keep funding that. I would definitely want to incentivize things to attract new businesses to make more economic growth so we can actually have maybe work on our tax problems. So we have other cities surrounding us like West Columbia, Lexington, Richland County. They have a better tax system than we do in terms of attracting businesses. So we have to work on these to be able to attract businesses organically, number one, without taking away funds from other necessities that we need in the city. So in terms of that, we need to work on our taxes. Had some kind of incentive to basically maybe even a tax break on a business that can bring a large economic boost in terms of jobs or new opportunities, things like that. That would be one idea I would have to help boost and attract businesses here.
To piggyback off what Aaron said, yeah, I don't feel like that's a bad idea at all. Give these businesses, especially new businesses, maybe a tax break for within the first year or two. Also give them incentives for the workers that they have there. And see, that's a big problem with starting the business is getting the employment as well. And when you get the employment, you have to keep the employment. Now, we have a lot of jobs that's around here in Colombia, just period, in the nation, talking about how hard it is to find labor and the incentives that they're given to hire people. But what about the people that are actually there? What are you doing for the people that are there, have been there since you started the business? Are you taking care of them? Are you giving them what's above a living wage? Because when you open a business and you want to start your business and you want to keep your business, you also need the workers to help motivate and progress that business. So are you getting them, because they are your front runners. They are the ones that's going to get the people to come in and say, hey, come shop with us. Or go, hey, we're hiring and this, that, and the third. So are we giving our part-time workers, are we giving them benefits? Are we giving them introductions to insurance? Are we giving them a chance? So when you look at that type of infrastructure, before you think about building those businesses, we have to think about how we're going to take care of the workers and the residents as well.
I had some serious doubts about the Bow Street project from the beginning.
Mr. Kringle, can you move the microphone towards your mouth a little bit more?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay. And I particularly was concerned about the building of the baseball field. I suggested, in fact, I wrote an op-ed in the Free Times suggesting that the University of South Carolina and the city get together and fund one baseball field and do a super deluxe job of doing that. Have the best college and minor league field in the United States. The way it is, we have 3 baseball fields in the city of Columbia that are empty 99% of the time. You have the old Capitol field on Assembly Street, you have Founders at the university, and then you have the Fireflies Stadium. To me, that reflects very poor judgment on the leadership of the city of Columbia, but also on the leadership of the University of South Carolina. University of South Carolina act a lot of times like they live on the planet Mars, that they're not part of the city of Columbia, they're not part of the community. So I'm not sure where we should go with the Bull Street project, but it raises a lot of questions about the reasonableness of starting the project in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Krangle.
Picking up from what Heather said, we owe it to the people of Columbia to finish all the projects at the start. Bull Street is one of them. It has the opportunity to be the center of where people can work, they can play, baseball games, shopping, and it's an asset to the people of Columbia. So we owe it to our citizens to finish all projects at the start. And it needs to be done in a way where we're not increasing the tax burden on our residents. And I believe it can be done. We just need to make sure whether it's debt that we're borrowing as at the lowest interest rate possible. We got to get creative and just make sure we're finishing the projects. Outside of finishing the project, we need to make sure that the Bull Street is inclusive of the diversity that the city has and the people who are building it. The construction workers, the general contractors, the architects. We need to look at the people who are getting the contracts to do the work and make sure the demographic makeup matches the city. Women run businesses, minority-run businesses, contractors, they should be playing an integral role in making sure that Bull Street is nice and lively and we finish the project. Thank you.
I love this question. When we talk about economic development, I want us to reshape the narrative a little bit. Sometimes I think we concentrate so much on job creation that we forget about careers. And I would love to talk about that more. But in reference to the Bull Street project, I cannot talk about the Bull Street project without talking about the complete disinvestment that we see in 29203 and the 29204 zip codes. When I came back 10 years ago, while I am extremely proud of the growth that we have seen on Divine Street, I'm extremely proud of the growth that we've seen on Main Street. And, the growth that we see at Bull Street should be applauded, but it cannot be at the complete disinvestment in areas like 29203 and 29204. We have to, at the same time, talk about Bull Street, but we cannot forget about Farrow Road, Monticello Road. We cannot forget about other streets and roads in the city of Columbia as well. But again, I would love to, thank you.
For responses, we will now turn to Dr. Oddity Bustles, followed by Ms. Heather Bauer, and followed by Mr. Aaron Smalls.
I especially appreciate that everybody here has said that we want to see Bull Street be finished, but that we definitely had some issues with the ways in which that project was started. One thing I wanted to talk about that I don't think has been touched on yet, and was part of your question, was how can we be more equitable about contracts? I know Tyler touched on it a little bit. I think that's where accountability in government comes in. I think if we be much more transparent and not give contracts to friends and families and, have these backdoor deals that sometimes are easier, but they're not right. And I think Bull Street is an example of that, where we could really learn from how we awarded contracts, ensure that things are easy for people to look up so they understand the process. And with that, it allows first-time contractors, people that are just getting in the business, to have a better understanding of how to get involved and be awarded funds to work on their city as well. And so I think that that is something that we can certainly take from Bull Street. And one other point would be around careers. I think we need to really work on bringing in firms as well to Bull Street so that people come here and stay for careers, whether it's young people, whether it's people making a career change. We deserve to be known for something other than being a college town. We have so many great assets here that I don't think are being tapped into. Thank you.
I think it's great that I've heard, from at least all of us say that USC is kind of an elephant in the room when it comes to land buying and developing downtown in our city. So I think having them at the table on that ad hoc committee that I would do want to form and collaborate with everybody in the Midlands is super, super important. And to hold them accountable when it comes to developing, because they buy up, they put up these high-rise school apartments, and typically they're from outside developers who come in. They bring their people from out of state. They leave. They make a bunch of money off of our people. So I want to hire locally. That's very, very important to me. And I think we can do a lot better with the architecture as well, but that's just a side note.
One thing I definitely want to say, just based on my experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't believe that completing a project should ever come at the expense of our citizens, because over there is a big misuse of funds. If you haven't seen, a lot of things have come out as of late. But again, just to sum it up, we should never put our needs and necessities of our everyday citizens over. Basically, we should never put entertainment over the needs of our citizens' needs.
Thank you. Our last response will come from Ms. Deidre Matthews.
Thank you, and I know that we need to move on, but I just love this. I just love this platform being a bit more conversational. And I'm glad that you brought up, Dr. Bustles, about holding ourselves accountable when, after we award these contracts, because very often, contractors will be awarded a contract based upon their promise to diversity and inclusion and equity, and these contracts will be awarded to these contractors. And with the promise of subcontracting the work. But very often these subcontractors, the jobs that these subcontractors have been promised, they don't ever see. And so we have to hold ourselves accountable throughout the entire process. After we award the contractor, we have to make sure that these subcontractors who were part of that proposal see their work be a part of the final product as well.
Thank you. That was our last response for that topic. We'll be moving on now, but there is a heavy emphasis on businesses and economic growth. So we will now talk about property taxes. According to the recent property tax study authored by Rebecca Gonlogson, although actual property taxes have dropped 4.4% in the last 10 years, the variety of special district taxes combined has stymied growth in the city and allowed the area to hold one of the highest property taxes in the nation. What is your response to this study, and how do you plan on utilizing this data to solve what the report calls a crisis of disinvestment?
I think that's me next.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I appreciate this, and I know this is a complicated topic. From what I do know, there are several factors why the taxes are so high here. It's our taxable base, so obviously if you don't have enough taxable base, the burden falls on other people, which makes it higher for other people. We also have a high millage rate within the Midlands, which also causes higher taxes. And there are certain things at the State House that we need to address as far as legislation that we need to tackle. And I can't promise I can do that in 4 years, but we can start that conversation again, working with the delegates within, I hate to say ad hoc committee again, but we have to work together because this is a multifaceted thing. It has to do with county council, it has to do with city council, it has to do with our State House. So that's how I would tackle it. And I'll obviously dig into I'm a data geek, so digging into the numbers and coming up with a plan. And I know there's, again, plenty of plans out there, but picking the low-hanging fruit and then going from there.
Okay, and I'm definitely not too familiar with this tax study, but I know one thing I can definitely say when it comes to a lot of these things and issues that plague our city, we always have neighboring cities or cities from around the country that have done these that have done similar projects, that have similar economic backgrounds as we do. We don't have to invent the wheel. We can definitely look into other studies, get advice from other cities that have done it and been successful at it before. So that would be my goal. I would definitely look into the study myself, but then also I would search and find cities that had similar issues in their towns, in similar backgrounds, demographics, and then gain advice from them. Because again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. These things have been done before, so we have hope out there.
I think dealing with the property taxes value, I think we need to take a closer look at it and maybe do a complete overhaul of the taxes, especially when we are allowing institutions to be charged 50% of taxes, which takes a negative equity to the state's revenue and income. Then we need to take a step back and look at what the overhaul and what are we charging our everyday residents as far as property taxes. Because we know when we let outside developers come in and buy the property and the land and they inflate the prices as far as what the property costs themselves, that automatically makes the property value of everything around it go up, which makes the taxes, the mortgage, and everything else go up. So what we need to do is take a look at those tax brackets and just completely do an overhaul on them. Thank you.
The study that was done is controversial. I talked to Howard Duvall, who is a member of the city council, and he debunks the study that was done, and he debunks Rickman's position about property taxes. He argues the property taxes in Colombia are not unduly heavy. But we do have a structural problem. Now, we have 4 layers of government in the city of Columbia. We've got city government, county government, and federal government, and state government, and then universities. So we have a huge amount, and churches, we have a huge amount of property that is not subject to property taxes. That's not an easy problem to cure unless you can get those entities to voluntarily contribute to provide service payments for fire and police protection. But I don't swallow the study that was done on property tax hook, line, and sinker because, as I say, Howard Duvall, and I think Howard's a reliable guy, in my discussion with him raised some serious questions about the validity of it.
So being from here and being frustrated time after time when Columbia misses out on opportunities to places like Charleston, Greenville, and Charlotte, and wondering why that's been the case, this property tax study was something that caught my attention. And I think it's something that is the elephant in the room that has to be addressed. Now when any business thinks about coming to Columbia, if they Google Columbia taxes, the study's gonna come up. The good thing is there is a way that we can fix our tax structure and make us more attractive to business so we can recruit industry here that's gonna pay our citizens living wages where they can have benefits, their kids can go to work, something that people can look up to. One thing we can do is we need to look between the county, school board, and the city taxes and try to come up with a combined or competitive tax rate and a plan to get there over the next couple of years. We can look at our services that may be overlapping, to cut down on it, so that way we can direct funds other places. And so there's things that we can do to make us more attractive for business, and what that's going to do is make sure that our people have livable wages, and it's going to make everything better here in Columbia. Thank you.
Well, I'll just say, truly going back to, we have to be careful when we talk about job creation. First and foremost, the city of Columbia, I believe, should not be seen as a job creator. I think the city of Columbia should be seen as a place and create. The city of Columbia should be the body that is creating a culture that allows the private sector to be the job creators. And I think that's how we're going to revamp and reshape our economic development plans. I mean, it is necessary. You know, we're talking about taxes. Our property taxes are high. Our industrial taxes are high. Our commercial taxes are high. Our taxes are high. And the only way that we're going to get companies, headquartered companies, where we have that career pipeline where individuals can graduate from all of our premier colleges right here in the city of Columbia and step right into a career with upward mobility. But we're going to have to do something about our tax structure. It's over time.
I really appreciate this question, as I've spent some time with that study, and I love data as well. I love looking at how we can make good with that data. And so a couple of things come to mind. I think Ms. Bauer makes a great point that Act 388, as well as some other issues that don't directly fall under the purview of the city, make it difficult to directly address property taxes immediately. But 2 things that we can do. First and foremost, goes back to infrastructure. I think we need to take a look at our business licensing, our zoning, things that keep people from wanting to work with the city to open a business. When we make it easy, sometimes even despite these high property taxes, because Greenville and Charleston, they also have some of those barriers, they know that it's a business-friendly city and they want to come in. The second thing I would say is all around ensuring that we work with and check and I say check on purpose because I think it is our job to check our colleagues in other local governments and ensure that we are all working together for the success of Columbia. Columbia's success is Richland County's success and vice versa. There are many, many other cities where the city and county are like this, and we need to do the same in order to move our city forward.
Thank you. For our response, we'll turn to Ms. Heather Bauer.
Yeah, I think to dismiss that the tax study is not valid is, I think, not accurate. I mean, I think you can look at the high-level numbers, and it's very clear that we have higher taxes than other comparable cities in our state. So to say that is not accurate at all. But I do think in my plan that I put out for ad hoc committee is to work together on starting very slowly on incrementally consolidating resources. Not only will help constituents, they have one number to call for water issues, we'll have one number to call for garbage issues in their city or recycling issues, but we're going to save money, we're going to make it easier for constituents to get services done. So I think there's really creative ways to do it, and that's kind of where my background comes into play. But we have to have someone like me on council to think creatively. Thank you.
Excuse me. Speaking of economic development plans, speaking of property taxes, pipelines, let's talk about housing. According to a July 2020 report by the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the Columbia metropolitan area is the 5th most expensive in the state related to housing wage, whereas a $17.30 hourly wage is needed to afford the most basic two-bedroom residence in our city. The 29210 zip code has the most affordable housing stock in Columbia, but the creation of more affordable housing has continued further away from the city center, segregating low-income individuals away from the city center. What are your plans to invest in affordable housing while mitigating gentrification?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned gentrification because that's one of the big things that definitely increases property value. So we definitely have to find ways where we can get the community involved in reinvesting in their community, number one. Without that, you'll definitely have bigger businesses or people with bigger pockets coming in and raising the property value of the houses that are around in the neighborhood. So with that, we definitely have to do that. We definitely have to even work on taxes, going back to that. When it comes to taxes, when you start having tax breaks and less taxes, the businesses are also able to maybe bring some of that saved income and actually pay their workers a little bit more. So you can have different increases that come with certain things that are given to our companies in terms of like tax breaks or lower taxes. So there's a lot of things we can do in the city to help businesses to allow them to get more of a livable wage. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you.
When you say that it takes $17.30 an hour just to be able to afford a two-bedroom household in Colombia, you have to first think about how many people actually make that. Let's really think. That goes back to the original statement I made where are we truly taking care of our employees? Because if you have a place like Lizard Thicket, I can guarantee you their highest paid cashier only makes $11.75. So guess what that cashier has to do? He has to get him another job just to be able to afford a household and still be cost burdened. So that goes right back to square one. Before we even get into the other developers coming in and buying up the property and raising the property value and raising the mortgage and raising the rent or the lease, we have to worry about being able to afford it first. So first thing we need to do, or at least when I'm elected, is work with people like the restaurant board and those that sit on there and see what they need to do or what help they need or what kind of funding they need to be able to take care of their employees so they can be able to afford that type of housing.
Thank you.
Well, one of the reasons we have a housing problem is the University of South Carolina has increased its enrollment in the last 10 years from 25,000 to 35,000. And that creates pressure on the housing market. Same time, the university is not building additional dormitories. The private developers come in and build properties that charge students $3,000 a month for an apartment that holds 4 people. So I think we have to look at what the university is doing, as well as the fact that the city the housing authority, in my opinion, has not been very effective, and try to get some coordination between what the university is doing in terms of its enrollment and what the housing authority is doing. But it's a very serious problem. When I campaigned for the House 3 years ago, I visited a number of apartment complexes, and it was appalling how dilapidated and unsanitary some of these apartment buildings are, in addition to the fact that many of them are fire traps. So it's a very serious problem, and I think the housing authority really needs to provide leadership there.
housing prices have gone up exponentially in the last few years. Wages are stagnant, so prices of houses are going up, rents are going up, people's wages aren't moving. There was a report not too long ago that showed that Richland County has the slowest wage growth in the state of South Carolina other than Hampton County. So Hampton County is the only county whose wage growth is slower than ours. So one thing we need to do is make sure that we bring in industry and to Columbia where our residents can actually make some money to afford the housing. And then from there, we've lost a lot of our affordable housing in the city. And the problem, there's a thin line between growth, new development, gentrification, and displacement. And we've seen displacement of communities that historically have been in Columbia for years. So when the new housing comes here, the city should make an emphasis making sure that the community that was there before has a place in the new housing and new facilities that we have. That will curb displacement. We can incentivize mixed income housing and also make sure there's agreements between the developers and the communities where the housing is coming to make sure things are diverse and the community is not being displaced. Thank you.
You know, this question comes up every time we all get together. And, you know, I honestly think that, you know, tagging on to what everybody just said, we cannot have this conversation about affordable housing or attainable housing without addressing the wage gap. We can't. And I'll tell you, if the study says that a healthy wage or a livable wage is $17 and some change, the city of Columbia should be the first. It should be a leader in paying its employees first, that livable wage. Be an example. And, you know, I know we have limited time, but I would love to talk about mixed income development, mixed use development, where our frontline workers have a space that's already carved out for them when our developers are coming in. You know, I as a former educator, I can't tell you how many times, you know, I have seen more taxi cabs in the school parking lot at the end of the day than we do have school buses. Thank you.
As a public health researcher, I've certainly seen firsthand what affordable housing can do for families in terms of their risk for a lot of adverse outcomes or in terms of economic mobility and opportunity. And I agree with many of the ideas that have been presented today, including mixed-use housing, ensuring that we're integrating some of our more vulnerable families into flourishing families, because the science shows that they also get to do well when they're around well-resourced neighborhoods. There's no reason why we should continue to displace and further disadvantage. I want to harp on one issue about the university. I am a proud Gamecock, but I do believe sometimes they bulldoze the city in making decisions that are not at the interest of the city, but perhaps the interest of the university. I think there needs to be better collaboration, thinking about the ways in which we are building out student housing and how that affects the rest of the market, especially for citizens that have lived here a really long time. And when that happens, you'll start to see some of the burden be released. And the last thing I'll mention is, in addition to the statistic you said, we're also, South Carolina's #1 in evictions in the country. And I think that there's a lot of things we can do on a city level to improve those processes so that those that are evicted are not going back into the cycle of not being able to find housing. Thank you.
First and foremost, everyone deserves a place to live. So I want to start with that. And my campaign team, we did some research on comparable cities across the country, similar size, similar demographic, maybe having a research institution within their city limits. And what we found is that we must work with the communities on rezoning and how they envision their communities in the future, 5, 10, 15 years. And by doing so, we also need to pass the Unified Development Code Act. And I think that'll probably be passed by the time I'm in, but that makes it easier for communities to see their vision through for how they want their community. Also, again, mentioning USC, but we have to have them at the table and hold them to a development plan for the future of the city. So those are a few things. Yep, I think I covered everything, but my white paper is on my website. But we have some bullet points of things we can do to get started on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Regina Williams wrote in our chat, we in Booker, Washington Heights are watching our property values decrease. More than 10 house fires in the last 6 months. In the words of a city council candidate, a third world country. Please note this historic neighborhood is adjacent to the Bull Street project. How can you help us? And that's Ms. Regina Williams. She wrote in our chat box. So we're going to start with Aaron.
Well, in terms of that, I'm gonna definitely go back to gentrification in its relations to the Bull Street project. We have to make it our goal and our mission to not allow these houses to get burned down and then decide to try to relocate these houses or build more expensive houses to further disadvantage the people who already live there. We have to make our commitment to help those people get back on their feet, help them, not necessarily us, but just make it our mission to not further push them out of there, because of course the Bull Street project is a pathway to gentrification in that area, and these houses burning down can aid that push. So it just would need to be our commitment to basically still honor the rights of those citizens who have lived there for how many ever years they already have been, and continue to build with our community and keep the equity going.
Thank you, Ms. Regina, for that question. I've done some work with Ms. Regina over in that area, and for one, that's one of the areas we like to call the forgotten side of town. For the main purposes, maybe because of the crime rate that goes on over there, or maybe because of the way it looks. I know for a fact, I rarely venture on that side of town anymore, but here's the thing. Those are still people. Those are still mothers. Those are still fathers over there. Those are still sisters, brothers. Those are still children that go to school, and we have to do what we can and do whatever's necessary, whether that takes getting them the grants that they need for the nonprofit organizations over there to get the type of resources that the community needs, or whether it takes the councilmen themselves actually going to check in on their district or their side of town and seeing what they can actually do to help those people in that area get the resources they need, make that property value go up, and make it a beaming light behind the Bull Street district and not just some dilapidated area side of town or a third world country as referred to.
Mr. Kringle, would you like to respond to that question?
There's no question that we have a number of residential properties that are fire traps at the present time, and they were built pre-code, and they're not being inspected by the fire department. So I think we need to increase the funding for the fire department very substantially, and that would include hiring more inspectors to visit these properties and identify them if they're fire traps and need remediation or even need to be demolished. Also, we don't have enough firemen. We have 60 vacancies in the fire department, and they're starting people with $16 an hour at the fire department. When fire starts, we don't have the personnel, and a lot of equipment's down too. We don't have the firemen and the equipment to go out and try to put the fire out. So it's a problem that has multiple dimensions to it.
Thank you.
My neighborhood of Elmwood Park about 30 or 40 years ago was a lot of shanty homes, abandoned drug homes, and what the city did was they thought the location of Elmwood Park was a value to the city, and they incentivized people to buy homes there and get homes up to code. Booker Heights could be recipient of a similar program. That way we're maintaining our neighborhoods and making sure communities that historically been there have access to the funds to improve the homes, get the houses up to code, and they can stay there. And that's going to prevent a community from being displaced. And we have to understand that part of the issue with gentrification is that there are investors, Wall Street, people from New York and California, who deliberately want to drive up the prices of homes, displace communities, and move a new community in there. So we need to make sure that the community that's there now has access to the capital to improve the homes, stay there, and the community is not being displaced. Thank you.
So I just want to comment. Do you know the message that was sent to the Booker Washington Heights community, watching all of those millions of dollars pour into an entertainment facility while they watch these houses go up in flames and while they watch their voices and cries be ignored? What message does that send to our community members? That sends a very, very bad message. And so I think there are ways that we can restore that faith in the Booker Washington Heights community. You know, talk about voter disenfranchisement. Go stand on the doorstep of a resident at Booker Washington Heights. We need to restore that faith in our elected leaders. And I think Booker Washington Heights is the very first place that we can start. Now, I know I have limited time, so I'm probably going to put my hand back up. But I have two ideas that I think that we can do that. And one is going to be we can offer. Thank you.
Ms. Regina, thank you so much for that question. I think that every community deserves to feel safe, to feel that their community is loved, because people care about communities that care about them. And there are three things that come to mind to me as to what we can do to help communities like Booker Washington Heights. First and foremost, if we, again, found $70 million to make a ballpark, we can find the money to bring in resources for communities that desperately need them. I'd like to continue to see our city community partnerships with people like you to ensure that we have access to food, access to basic resources, to ensure that children, mothers, individuals, families have everything they need to thrive in the short term. In the long term, I'd like to see more investment come in, intentional investment, where those that already live in the community have a say in what types of investment are coming in and what types of programs fit their needs. And finally, I want every community to be safe, and I'd like to strengthen our partnerships with our communities to ensure that they feel safe, so we can address the root causes of crime, whether it's mental illness, trauma, all of those things that often are overlooked but really serve and affect generations to come. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Ms. Regina. I think the undertone of what she was trying to say, I think the biggest goose egg of the Bull Street development as it is now is that there is no entrance to that side of town from Bull Street. There's no way to get in and out from that side of town. If you think about it, you can get on Bull Street, you can get on downtown, but North Columbia, you cannot get in and out. That sends a message. And I think we need leadership on council who will think equitably every single day and with every single decision that they make when they're on council. So I think that's the kind of leadership we need. That's the lens I will have when elected. Decisions like that speak volumes. Thank you.
Thank you. Because of time, we'll have to move on to our next topic. I'm sorry. Education inequities, health disparities, access to wealth-building opportunities, and financial inequality are among many issues that make up a larger apparatus of systemic racism that certainly impacts our communities in Columbia. What are actionable steps that you plan to immediately take as a city council member to make Columbia more equitable and also set an example for the rest of the state? Mr. Jonathan Tyler, we will start with you.
I mean this in the most humblest way possible. Vet everybody. That means from the incoming officers we plan to hire to fill those vacancies, we need to have mental health evaluations for them. If they're coming from other departments, we need to have them checked to make sure there aren't any complaints on their behalf, so we make sure we have the proper people protecting our citizens. When it comes to looking into these investors from the outside, when we really should be looking at developers and investors from the inside of our state. If we're going to look outside, we need to vet them. We need to check their backtrack, their paper trails, and make sure that they are held accountable for anything that they're done before we even think about dealing with them. Same thing when it comes to our school board and even our own council members. We need to sit down and check each other and make sure we're accountable for the things that we do. So when you want to talk about getting rid of the systematic racism on a social level, that comes with checking yourself and looking in the mirror first. I can tell you that personally from being on the front line, endless, tireless days out there protesting, yelling, screaming, ranting, from going to the police station, talking to the sheriff, to the state house. I had to look in the mirror first. So that's the first and foremost thing we have to do before we can look into anything else.
Thank you.
In South Carolina, cities are not allowed to set a minimum wage the way they are in some other cities, such as Seattle, for example. Seattle, the minimum wage is $15 an hour. I think the city council in Columbia needs to work with other city councils around the state to get legislation passed that allows cities to set minimum wages. I think that would do a lot to improve the lives of people who live in the city of Columbia, because a lot of these employers, I noticed an ad on the McDonald's hamburger shop on Garnets Ferry Road yesterday, advertising for employees at $10 an hour. Well, who can live on $10 an hour? Nobody can nowadays. So the cities need to be given enough autonomy and authority to set minimum wages at a level that provides people with the resources they need to live a decent life.
One of the things that came out of the brutal murder of George Floyd is a new consciousness of the general public about the racial inequities and disparities that exist in cities and communities. And so now we're at a really good prime time to take a deeper look at it to make sure we're addressing these things so our kids don't have to go through what we went through growing up. Racism now has the opportunity to be stomped out, and it can be stomped out in a lot of ways. One thing is with this equitable study, we can look at making sure that we have an inclusive economy where there's economic opportunities for all of us, everybody in the city, whether you live in 29203 or somewhere in 29205. We need to make sure that people have access to good jobs so they don't have to turn to crime and do other things. Also, we need to make sure that we invest in a community that has historically been subject to disinvestment and redlining for years and generations. I mean, if you look back to the 40s, we had people coming back from World War II who were not able to receive the same benefits that were offered to people of different races, and now our community is still trying to catch up from that. So we have an opportunity now to really make a historic investment in a divested community to make sure our community is better for everybody moving forward. Thank you.
I missed the question, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to answer it because I'm listening to everybody's answers. You know, when I think about equity versus equality, I think equality is inviting voices in the room. Equity is listening to those voices once they get inside the room. And so I have been talking about commissioning a community assessment filtered through the lens of equity since I started my campaign. And I think that assessment will certainly inform where those historical investments have been made. And I think that we have to follow that information because, you know, we can talk about statistics all day long, but we have to remember that when we're talking about statistics, we are talking about real people. So taking that community assessment, allowing it to inform and shape how we move forward and our decision making and how we address the disinvestment in certain communities across the city of Columbia.
As a public health researcher, service and equity is at the very core of why I chose to dedicate my career to ensuring that children and families have everything that they need to succeed. And that is why I've decided to run in a time that we are looking at the recovery of the pandemic, what that's going to look like for our communities, our businesses, and our city. And I think that what I'm really excited to do immediately is I had the fortune of serving on the Future of Columbia's commission, in which we looked at and developed a study looking at inclusion in our city. We just got the data back, and I'm very excited to take a look at the responses that have been provided to us about the gaps and needs that our city has to be more equitable. And then I think it goes back to those three things that I've mentioned throughout this discussion. We need to ensure our communities are safe. We need to ensure we're bringing in good jobs that turn into careers. And we need to ensure that our government is known for being responsive, friendly, and an entity that you don't have to know the right person to get something done. Because when those three things happen, I really think anything's possible.
So I know nothing I say tonight can fix what has happened and what is happening every day for our black and brown neighbors. But what I can commit is to having a lens with every decision that I make on council with that in mind. And that's why my platform is all about equity and getting back to basics and serving all those things that you touched on, attainable housing, food insecurities. I'm currently serving on the Food Policy Committee now for Columbia, trying to solve those issues. Clean drink, everyone deserves clean drinking water. It's on my platform. So I am focusing on those things because we need to have an equitable lens with every single thing, and it's multifaceted, it's not one dimension, and it's not one thing I can do immediately, but multiple things all together. Thank you.
And in terms of equity, my belief is that if there's one person left behind, we are all left behind. So With that known, with that said, I believe we definitely have to start with a lot of things that deal with our children, especially in disadvantaged areas. One thing I did probably about a month ago, I went to every single rec center. I did not go with the intention of finding what I saw, but I saw every single rec center in the city of Columbia did not have one working computer for the children who actually came to use them. I was told by an employee that they had not had one working computer for the 4 years they have been there. That's not all of them. That, to me, shows a lack of equity, because at the same point in time, these children still need to be allowed the same opportunity that people who actually have computers in their homes have. And especially if we're promoting that on our website, saying that we provide these things for the people. Also thinking about job opportunities. Of course, we have felons who actually are rehabilitated and get back into the work life. My time.
Since we're talking about the equity and replacement of the community, to piggyback off Aaron, you do have felons out here that are rehabilitated, but a lot of them are afraid. And when I say they're afraid, because of the stereotypical or the stigma that they're told that they're not given that second chance. They don't know they have that opportunity. And for a lot of those places, now we do have the First Step program that was instituted under the last presidency, but here in South Carolina, especially in Columbia, we need to work on some type of programs that'll help these felons that are coming out of the prison system, that are coming out of these systems, to be able to get them not only back into the community as constructive citizens, but get them to help us build that community that we want as well. Because one thing people don't understand, some of the brightest minds are back there behind those walls. It may be because of a decision they made when they was a teenager that they got caught in those situations. So we have to let people like that know that they have a second chance once they come into this community.
Thank you. The next question, John Kringle, you'll be the first to respond to this next question, okay? And it's a very kind of lengthy question, so bear with me. So Black communities across America have received a heavy spotlight on countless platforms across the nation. So not only racially disproportionate policing, access to affordable health care, inequities in food access, and environmental injustices, among other public health issues, are increasingly felt by underserved communities, particularly communities of color, and more so following the COVID-19 pandemic and the Delta variant. What are some solutions you would offer to not only address some of the impacts of the pandemic that have left communities of color impacted, but also proactively creating to address issues that were already systemic in Colombia?
Well, you reserved the most lengthy question. For me, that's a tough question, but when I campaigned for the legislature 3 years ago, I advocated Medicaid expansion. The state of South Carolina has been rejecting $900 million a year in Medicaid money. In my opinion, it was extremely stupid and irresponsible for the legislature to do that. And Nikki Haley and McMaster are the main culprits. So number one, I would try to work on the legislature to get Medicaid expanded in the state of South Carolina. I've been a lobbyist for 35 years at the State House, and I know how to lobby and I know who to lobby, so I think I could be effective in doing that. I'm not a physician, I'm not a medical person. But I do think that Medicaid expansion would be something that would greatly benefit the low-income people of South Carolina, and there's no excuse for not doing it.
Thank you.
The pandemic really amplified the disparities that exist in our community, and frankly speaking, it's hard to be concerned about your health or maybe checking your symptoms if you feel like you have a cold when you're just struggling to put food on your table and you need to show up to work. And you have to work 2 or 3 jobs as is to even get to 1730 to afford the roof that's over your house. So one thing that we can do to really address these disparities is making sure that we're bringing industry here where people can make a good living, where they don't have to have a a college degree or advanced degree to live a comfortable, healthy lifestyle. Another thing is we just have to admit and understand that it's really on the burden of the city as a whole to make sure that we're addressing these inequities in healthcare and access to healthcare. Health does not exist, or individual health does not exist in a vacuum. It's affected by where you live, where you work, where you play, your surroundings, your education level, access to parks, sidewalks. All that must be addressed when we're thinking about health of everybody in our city. And we can do it. Thank you.
So, when we talk about disparities and systemic racism and injustice, we have to remember that we have this because it was created by people. These systems were created by people. And it's going to take people to either tear them down or rebuild them. And we have to have a real conversation about that. But I'm going to take a different angle because I'm a former educator, former classroom teacher. And I said before, I would argue with anybody. Most of society's ills and woes show up in our classrooms every single day. And those disparities show up in a very glaring way every single day. My favorite quote of all time, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. We have to find a way to invest in our children. And I cannot tell you how many times I have looked in the brown eyes of a 12-year-old boy who already sees in his future prison. So these systems exist, again, because of people. And it's going to take people to pull us out or rebuild these systems. Thank you.
The pandemic certainly made a lot of things clear, but one of the most important things was we need to have a public health voice at the table, and that's exactly what inspired me to run. We've heard a lot of different conversations about how the pandemic has impacted our communities, our businesses. This is something that I've been working on professionally for many, many years, and I'm excited to bring that data-driven perspective to the table. Now, when it comes to how we advance our city post-pandemic, here's what I can say. Being pro-public health means ensuring that our small businesses are doing well so that we have the revenue to address all of the different needs of our neighborhoods. Being pro-public health means that our roads are safe, our sidewalks are safe, so that our city is vibrant and is accessible for all people in all walks of life. Being pro-public health also means that we're bringing together all different backgrounds to develop bold solutions to the various problems that we're seeing. Local government has a really important and exciting moment to really advance without worrying about some of the partisan politics that have existed on so many different levels. And if there's an opportunity to really advance public health, I really believe it's in Colombia.
That's a very big question. I think we've touched on a lot of it with our different answers. But what I'm excited about is that we do have plans for a lot of these things that have been researched, but now we need someone who knows how to get it done, and that's me. As a project manager, so what I do every single day is pick away at big projects. But something I think, we had a forum earlier this week, but number one thing for me was food access. We have one of the largest food deserts in the city in North Colombia, and I'm on the food policy committee. What we can do now is use those American Rescue Plan dollars to get grocers into that area. And also implement a mobile food market. So I'm going to pitch the food policy committee to lobby ourselves for those dollars. But that's something we can do honestly, that's not going to be simple, but we need to put dollars towards it to get grocers into North Colombia and get mobile food markets out there. Thank you.
And one thing I definitely want to agree with Deetra. The issues that we have with disparities are definitely made by people, and a lot of them have been over 500 years in the making. I'm going to touch on one thing when it comes to health disparity. We have something called soul food. Where did that come from? A lot of this stuff is a cultural thing that we have to get to the bottom of. That's first and foremost. But let me just go on to the other tangent and cover the thing about public safety and policing in our communities. We definitely have to have it where we have true police officers who are able to connect with the neighborhoods. I had a friend who recently retired from the Columbia Police Department. He was an active person who always made sure he was out in the streets. He didn't come to be reactive when there was problems in the communities. He was always out there to meet everybody when he had free time patrolling, as these officers should. It's called beat officers. So basically they patrol these neighborhoods, they meet the community, they make them comfortable. We have to have more of that inclusion. So at the end of the day, especially going back to what you said, we have to reach the children first. Once the children are ready and actually open and receptive to these people coming into our neighborhoods, we can really make a true change.
The family is the smallest unit in any nation, and for that nation to proceed or progress, that family has to be taken care of, whether that be secured by food source, whether that be secured by health, or whether that be secured in their finances, not having to worry about whether their bills will go get paid or do they have to pay their taxes. So at the end of the day, if this is not the grandiose question, then we have to go back to the bullet point of making sure that each and every family in each and every side of town, whether it be from the 29201 to the 29203, to the 29223. It doesn't matter. We have to make sure that each and every last one of those children are taken care of. We have to make sure that their homes are safe. We have to make sure they have proper water. We have to make sure they have their food. And we also have to make sure that their education is up to par and up to standards. Because guess what? In the next 10 years, our children won't be able to read the Constitution. So that's something we need to think about.
Thank you all for the discussion. We're moving to our last question. So starting with Mr. Tyler Bailey. Why should the citizens of Columbia vote for you?
Thank you for this forum that y'all put on. I will say that, as I said in my introduction, on November 2nd, people are going to be able to make a choice whether you want to go about business as usual or you really want to make some change to bring Columbia to a different place moving forward. When you go into the booth to vote, I'm somebody who can relate to what you're going through. I'm a father who has a son here, who wants his son to be safe and be able to play in his neighborhoods, move from here. If he moves, come back or stay here and be successful. I'm a husband. I'm a business owner. I want my business to be successful so I can continue to hire more people and pay more people money so they can live successful lives. And I'm a member of this community who cares about it, and I'm tired of seeing this city get passed over for Charleston, Greenville, Charlotte, Nashville, and all other similar regional cities. We have an opportunity to address the disparities in our communities, to attract and retain industry here so our people can have good wages. I have a plan to get that done, and I plan on winning on November 2nd, and that's why you should vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just really going to share what I bring to the table from my lived experiences. I think I said before, born and raised here in Columbia, South Carolina, product of Richland School District 1. I am a military spouse. I have lived, worked, played, and worshiped in so many different cities around the city, around the country. I'm a mother. I'm a mother of a daughter who was born with special needs. The differently able community is extremely important to me, and that community will be a major priority as I do the work as a city councilwoman. I'm also a former educator, and again, I have seen how all of these issues show up in a classroom every single day. I've seen how children shoulder these challenges every single day. I'm now the government relations manager for a local environmental organization where we advocate for clean air, clean water, clean energy, and access to safe green space for everyone. I am my organization's registered lobbyist, so I have relationships at our South Carolina State House. I deeply know what governance looks like. So please vote for me on November 2nd, Deetra Stover Matthews, Columbia City Council at large. Thank you so much.
Hi, since March 2020, to no fault of our own, we have been dealing with this pandemic. And as I said earlier, that's what inspired me to run. I'm Dr. Aditi Bustles. I'm a public health researcher, and I consider myself a problem solver. For the last 10 years, I've dedicated my career to ensuring children and families have everything they need to succeed, ensuring that health really becomes the great equalizer, and ensuring that people have and can meet their full potential. I'm uniquely qualified in a time that our small businesses are suffering, our communities' disparities are worsening, and people are leaving. And I'm very, very excited to bring a complete outside perspective, a perspective that has never really been on city council, bring in new relationships, bring in new ideas, and push the status quo. My friends will tell you I'm not afraid to be the person that stands up even when it's unpopular, and that's exactly what I'm going to do on city council, because there's some really critical decisions that need to be made for the next 5 to 10 years. Again, I'm Dr. Aditi Bustles. I am asking for your vote on November 2nd, and I'd be honored for your support. Thank you.
Thanks for having us here tonight. Heather Bauer, I would love to earn your vote on November 2nd, and I think I'm the candidate for you. I've been doing the work for over 14 years in this city, boots on the ground. I've run nonprofits, Ideology. I've run Nickelodeon Theater, doing programs across the city for our youth. I've served with Congreve Vista Gilboard, Columbia Design League, Harvest Hope, Palmetto Pride Clean Pickup Crew. I've been picking up garbage across our city for over a decade. I've been doing the work consistently for over 14 years. In my skill set as a project manager, I know how to chip away at big, complex problems. That's what I do, and we get it done on time and on budget, or else I would not have a job. And I'm a business owner. I've had to shut down my business, pivot fast. I understand every single day what it means to make payroll. So please vote Heather Bauer, November 2nd. Thank you.
Well, my life and work experiences has taken me to every single continent outside of Antarctica and Australia. So I definitely have been around many walks of life. And when it comes to Colombia, we have many walks of life and many people from many different backgrounds who live in this great city. So I definitely think that would make me relatable and also bring a new vision to Colombia. When it comes to my work experience, I was involved in auditing, holding our company accountable for things that could actually harm our military while they were overseas. If people remember the thing with a company, which I'm not going to mention, but we had military electrocuted. That's something that we have to keep holding people accountable for. So you have to have a government that will actually look at problems, be transparent about it, fix the problems we see, and then if they aren't fixed, hold each other accountable. If you know of me from the protest, I was out there pretty much filming. I saw a lot of things that were wrong with how our police officers reacted. Some things were good, but there was a lot of policies that were broken, and our city council did nothing to actually be accountable for them. We need accountability.
My name is John Tyler. I'm running for city council seat at large. And when you look for leadership, do you want them to see you as statistics and numbers, or do you want them to see you as the people that you truly are? Do you want them sitting up in some building delegating orders, or do you want them with their sleeves rolled up, feeding them up with you, solving the solutions to those problems? I am that candidate. A vote for me is a vote for the people. I'm going to keep it completely short and sweet. So come November 2nd, look for John Tyler, and we're going to win. Stronger together, we can win.
I'm John Kringle. I've been impressed by the knowledge and the intensity of all the candidates. I think every one of the people sitting here could handle the job of being a city council member very effectively. What I would bring to the game is my lobbying experience, 35 years at the General Assembly. I think that the city of Columbia has not had an effective lobbying program to get more state funds and more federal funds to be used for infrastructure and the other needs that we have, and I think I could do that and do it effectively based on my own history. I also have taught in the prison system at Manning and Kirkland. I've coached baseball and tennis in Columbia, and I've lived in the city for 47 years.
Thank you. Thank you, all the candidates, for your time tonight. Listen, Columbia, be a do tank. I can't stress how imperative it is for you to not just to vote, but to hold your elected officials accountable after the vote, after their appointment into office in January. I would like to thank my co-moderator, Mr. David Olds, for hanging out with us tonight and for his support and actually spearheading this event, co-planning this event. He's one of our volunteers and does great work with the Columbia Urban League Young Professionals. Thank you to all of our candidates for your attendance, our viewers for your participation, our partner, Freethinkers Radio, Artesian Bath and Body for providing this venue to us. The YPs encourage you all to engage and reclaim your vote in this year's election day. Local elections matters, period. We want to make sure that we use our platform continuously to shed light on pertinent issues and offer viable solutions to the community. I encourage you all to join the Columbia Urban League movement and become an active ambassador wherever you are located. And if you're in the Midlands area, we want you to join us today, tonight. So follow us on Instagram, go to our website, like us on Facebook, repost and share with your family, friends, and other young professionals. Thank you again for a great conversation, and have a good night.